It's always been a dream of mine to speak at a TEDx talk. When I first saw a friend of mine speaking at one, I thought, I want to do it myself. And here I am today. That's what I want to share with you, is the power of goals and dreams, that if you think it, it can be that way. There is a book called The Secret that I was inspired by many years ago, and it's the law of attraction. And it says that everybody has the ability to create their own reality. And one quote from the book is that thoughts can become things. So I've had many thoughts in my life, but they haven't come without challenges and stress and anxiety. I've had to work really hard for these thoughts to become a reality. And I want to share those with you today. I've had 3 dreams in my life. One dream was to become a college professor. And this is what I do now, as I teach at CCSU. My other dream was to become a gym owner, and I did. I owned my own gym for 5 years after I finished my PhD. And my third dream was to become an expert in fitness and nutrition, and I did that, authoring 4 books, 2 of which are here. One, New Rules of Lifting for Women, and the other one, The Women's Health Perfect Body Diet, plus one I just did recently, and another one I collaborated on. And these all came about because I had a dream. But like I said, none of this came easy. So I'm from a small city in northern British Columbia, Canada, called Prince George, and we have a population of 80,000. And then the population of Canada is less than the population of the state of California. So for those of you in the US, you can realize it's not a lot of people. So when I was growing up, like Jesse had said, is I dreamed of being a teacher. So I'd round up the neighborhood kids and I would teach to them. I took apple boxes and I turned them upside down and I turned them into desks. And my parents had a chalkboard in the basement and I would teach them subjects like English and math. Not that I was particularly good at those subjects, but I was older than the kids, so I knew more. So I looked pretty smart. So I would share and I'd teach and I would inspire, and it's something that meant a lot to me. But then when school carried on, I got picked on, I was bullied, I wasn't in the popular crowd, and I felt like my dreams were squashed. And I started rebelling because I didn't fit in. So I started drinking and doing drugs at a really young age. My parents ended up kicking me out of their house when I was 15 and I lived on my own. I got thrown in jail for stealing, and I was told by a police officer that if I get caught stealing again, I'll never go to Disney World because I'd never be able to leave the country. Okay, that's what he said. So I knew I was better than that, and I finally got myself back together and I ended up graduating high school still at 17 years old because I was advanced in some of my education. I did an international baccalaureate program, so I did get kicked out of high school too, but I graduated when I was 17. And finally when I got to college is when I could really be me and realize my dreams. And I started my college program first as a business student and realized after taking economics I hated business, but that I love nutrition and I love to eat. So I went into the field of dietetics, and my goal was to become a registered dietitian. In my 4th year of college, I applied for a dietetic internship and I was rejected. And I cried and I ate chocolate and called my dad and said I was a failure, but I kept pursuing and I knew I had to do everything it took to get an internship later when I applied again. But it opened up a door for an opportunity. So one of my nutrition professors, his name is Tom Clendenin, he approached me and said, do you want to work for me over the summer doing research assistance, because I was really good in the class. And I said, sure. And that got me introduced to research. So he sat me down and he said, where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years, and 15 years? And I said, well, I don't know about 5 years, but I know that I look up to my college professors and I want to be like them one day. They inspire me and I want to do the same thing for someone one day. So he said, okay, well, you need to do a PhD then to become a college professor. And I was like, whatever that is, let's do it. So he said, well, first before a PhD, you have to do a master's. So he encouraged me to apply for a scholarship. And this scholarship would pay for me to do my master's in full if I got it. So I finally graduated, and I'd been working for him part-time, and I remember sitting on my deck in the summer, and I got a letter in the mail. This was before email was really easy for people to use. So I got a letter in the mail, and it said I had won this award from the National Science and Engineering Research Council of Canada, and it was a full scholarship to fund me through my master's and pay for me to do it and do all the research I needed to do. So I called up my supervisor, Tom Clendenin, who became my supervisor, I should say, and he said, okay, I'll see you in the lab tomorrow. And that was the end of my summer. But it was then the beginning of this journey of me to do a graduate career to get my PhD. And it was hard. I cried a lot. I saw a therapist. I thought I was going crazy a couple times because I did a harder master's than I did for my PhD. And while I was in my master's, though, I knew I wanted to do a PhD, so I was trying to find a program somewhere that would suit me. So I was reading a magazine article one day, and it was written by a guy named John Berardi. And the article is called Covering Your Nutritional Basis. And it was exactly what I wanted to do. It was talking about how to balance your food intake so your body was optimized for exercise. And I was really into exercise, and I was really into eating well, even though that wasn't the case when I was a teenager. And I saw his bio at the end, and it said he was doing his PhD at the University of Western Ontario in Canada. So I emailed him, because that's what you do, right? And I emailed him, and I said, I want to do a PhD where you're doing it at, because that's what I want to study. So he said, well, we're not taking any students here. My supervisor doesn't have any funding right now, but next month I'm speaking at a conference in Chicago. And you should go, because you might meet some people you could do your research with. So I booked a ticket to Chicago at 23 years old, doing my master's, and I'd only been to the US when I'd gone to Disneyland with my parents. So I did make it there, despite what the police officer said. But I booked this ticket, and I ended up meeting a bunch of really cool people and networking and finding people that were like me that wanted to dream big. And one of the guys I met, his name is Jose Antonio, who now is actually the creator of the International Society of Sports Nutrition, and we became friends. And he said, if you're going to do your PhD, you need to go to the University of Connecticut and work with Jeff Volek, because he's studying ketogenic diets, and they're hot right now. And also they pay grad students at UConn a lot. So I was like, okay, so what did I do again? I emailed Jeff Volek, and I said, I want to be your PhD student, and this is what I'm doing for my master's. And he goes, okay. And this was before UConn got voted the #1 kinesiology program in the US for research. So I was accepted without doing GREs. Don't ask me how that happened. So I finished up my master's, like I said, with some blood, sweat, and tears. And a week after I defended my master's thesis, I packed up my car in Canada, Western Canada, with everything I owned, and drove across the country with a roll of toilet paper and a paper map. There was not GPS back then. And it was scary, and it feels surreal that I did this, but it was because I had this dream of doing my PhD to get to my final goal. So then fast forward 5 years at the University of Connecticut. I didn't know anybody. I didn't have any family there, no relatives, no nothing, and I still persisted through this PhD because there was that little light at the end of the tunnel. And finally I graduated in 2009, and I was done. And what did I do? I switched careers. And I opened a gym because I was tired of school after being in it for 12 years. So I pursued my other dream in life. I love to exercise, and I used to be in the gym all the time, and people would say, do you live here? And I said, no, but I'm going to have my own gym one day. So what did I do? I opened a gym, and it turned out really great. I first started subleasing space from people, and then I finally built my own place. I had 2,000 square feet. I had over 200 clients, and I was able to really reach out and change the lives of men and women across the state of Connecticut. And I quickly expanded to 4,000 square feet, and I did that for 5 years. And as business has it, it doesn't always go all that great, so it started failing a little bit at the end, and I thought, okay, it's time for me to jump ship and go back to academia, to my other goal. And so what I did is I sold my business, thankfully, for everything that I put into it, and I went back into academia. And the way that actually happened is when the business was kind of failing, I got this random email from a professor at CCSU, said that we have this opening at CCSU, and I've seen you speak on stage, because at this time I actually had been speaking at some conferences because I had been kind of a trendsetter in the fitness and nutrition industry. And he said, I want you to come work at CCSU. So I applied, and I didn't get the job, but I got an adjunct position at UConn, and then eventually I finally came to Central. And it was my goal to be the best teacher ever. And that's what I've been doing lately since I've been here at CCSU. I've won the excellence, I've got on the honor roll, I should say, for the Excellence in Teaching Award for 2 years already at Central. And it's my goal to finally get the final award. So that was 2 things I accomplished because I had a dream, because I really wanted to achieve those things. But like I said, it wasn't easy. When I started my business, I had no money. I raised money by selling memberships for a year in full. I took no loans, and I just worked really hard to build it. I had no business experience. I'd never taken a business class. But it was just something I really wanted to do, so I was going to make it happen. So then the other goal, like I said, that I had in life was to be a fitness and nutrition expert. So while I was in college, I used to write on websites, and I'd be on forums, if anyone know what those things are. It's a place where people exchange ideas. And it ended up that I got to interact with some people that were big game changers in the industry. And I wrote articles online and I got my name out there. So because of me getting my name out there and writing these articles on weightlifting for women specifically, what I was really into, I got an email when I was doing my PhD at the University of Connecticut from a guy named Lou Schuler, and he asked me if I wanted to co-write the book, The New Rules of Lifting for Women, with him, all because I was writing articles on websites. And I was like, okay, and I did. And 6 months after I got that email from Lou Schuler, I got an email from Women's Health magazine, and they asked me to write their next diet book, because they wanted a female that would be able to write a book on diet that had an advanced degree. And at that moment, I was pursuing my PhD and already had a master's. I said, okay. So in addition to me finishing my dissertation for my PhD, I also wrote 2 books. It was a little crazy. I didn't sleep a lot. I remember when I was finishing up the end of this book, The Perfect Body Diet, I stayed up for 24 hours straight writing the diets. And when that 24th hour hit and I had to send the manuscript in, I walked out of my basement suite to like sunlight. And I was like, there's a world out here. So all this sounds like it was easy, but it really wasn't. It was a lot of stress. It was really hard. But I had this goal and I had a dream. And I want people to know that they should never stop dreaming and never stop reaching for goals that they want, because we all can achieve anything that we want. This is our world. Everyone else is just in it. We can create our own reality. So with that said, I want to leave you with one quote from Ryan Holiday in hopes to inspire you. We all have goals. We want to matter. We want to be important. We want to have freedom and power to pursue our creative work. We want respect from our peers and recognition for our accomplishments, not out of vanity or selfishness, but out of an earnest desire to fulfill our personal potential. So it is my earnest desire for all of you to reach out and find your personal potential and never stop trying.